Let's turn to Dan Levy, who thinks the benefits to automakers could be somewhat limited here. He's the senior auto analyst at Barclays. I always love it, Dan, when someone, the industry you cover, you're like, I'm basically broadly neutral. I'm not seeing a lot of upside right now, and I can understand why. So what is the fundamental impact of these changes you think that Megan just outlined?
Yeah, thank you so much, Kelly, for having me. Look, I think any sort of relief is helpful. The tariffs are hitting in a variety of ways, the 25% on completed vehicles, the tariffs on parts, and then some of the other ancillary tariffs as well. So anything really helps, but you have to remember that there's still a significant amount of vehicles that are still being made outside of the U.S., and there's still no relief on that. And so that's why you have to think about that in aggregate. I think it will certainly help to have some parts relief, and they will move some production to the U.S., but that will take time.
How much, if I'm a company, if I'm Ford, and again, Ford is a $10 stock at this point, GM, if I'm in those boardrooms, what am I now incentivized to do, right? From an analyst point of view, what do you expect the companies to do? Do you want them to start moving supply chains here to the U.S.?
Well, I think the companies are going to try to be really thoughtful about all of this. Look, I think that the tariff policy as it stands today will incentivize production to be moved to the United States. But I think the automakers are going to try to be deliberate with that. Capacity changes, CapEx investments, these are things that you want to have certainty, finality on policy before you make any actual decisions. So I think they're going to try to be very deliberate with what they're doing, but really waiting for a final policy.
I mean, what's the outlook for these companies? Let's show Tesla as well, because I assume that they're all counted as the same. They just might have a different mix and so forth. So what does the traditional big three, the Detroit area automakers, what's their outlook, competitively speaking and with everything else going on these days?
Well, I think it's all relative, right? Relative to perhaps some of the foreign automakers, they have the opportunity to take some share, especially a company like Ford, where roughly 80% of what it sells in the U.S. is made in the U.S. So they're fairly well positioned there. Even a company like Tesla, that everything they sell in the U.S. is made in the U.S., they're well positioned. But it gets to be a bit mixed, right? A company like GM that, just under half of what it sells in the U.S. is assembled elsewhere. There's going to be a little more work on their part to figure out what to do, especially on some of the more affordable vehicles, which are really all coming from either Mexico or Korea. Exactly, and we know that's going to be maybe a gap in the market. I guess the other most important question to ask, other than if they can, do okay in this environment is, are the foreign automakers going to start to move production here? Like, should we, I'm thinking Porsche and Volvo and some of those reports we got this morning, should we expect that those who are still kind of pure importers are going to look towards having a U.S. foothold, and could that help on the employment front down the road? You're probably going to see more production move to the U.S. from the foreign automakers. It obviously varies, right? We've already seen a while ago, Hyundai made a large CapEx commitment and a large manufacturing commitment, so there will be more along the lines of that. Automakers such as Toyota, Honda, they already have very large U.S. footprints that will increase. The same for Nissan. I think the question is, though, for some of the automakers that, maybe they don't have the scale in the U.S., that's where it's a bit more of a question. And obviously, also, is it a vehicle where you can pass on the price to consumers? Maybe you could do that a bit more at the upper luxury end, but for mass market vehicles, not as much.